What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Joe.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's this is round two of us trying to record a podcast. Like the initial recording was a great conversation, and I was very bummed when I listened to it, and it's like um, the audio didn't work out. So it is what it is. It gives us another chance to chat. So I guess that's the bonus.
For sure. And the second one will be better. I'm pretty sure about that. So, yeah.
Well, we have no choice but to make it better. So, um, yeah, man. So I guess to kick it off, for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah. So, I'm Ravit Jain, founder and host of The Ravit Show. People in the data space might have heard about me, about my show somehow, because I kind of go out there and do a lot of free stuff. Do go
Mhm.
out and, share a lot of free resources with the community from the legends, recommend a lot of books, but not only just that, obviously host a show which is the Ravit Show, where I interview leaders who are CEOs, CTOs, head of engineering, head of product, or thought leaders like you, Joe, and getting the insights for the community and bridging that gap where we're listening to even the startup founders, but not only just that, also the enterprise leaders who are sitting and actually buying those tools which these startups are selling. So those types of conversation we have on the Rabbit Show. It's a live show, so folks kind of get to obviously ask questions on that live show and get closer to the CEOs, CTOs, and those thought leaders. So it's all fun. But yeah, that's me. I also
Cool.
work as a head community evangelist with AdScale, which is a Boston based company.
Nice.
And we've been obviously into the semantic layer and doing a lot there. So I make sure where the community is, I'm bridging that gap where I'm bringing the right insights for the community from AdScale as well, and getting them closer to what semantic layer is, what data warehousing is, and
Hmm.
making that work easier for the data enterprises as well, where it's not just another marketing gig or gimmick that they kind of feel, but some authentic, uh, you know, content that we create at scale as well, and bring it for our community.
It's really interesting. Kind of rewinding back to the Rabbit Show. I mean, you've been doing that for quite a while. How did that all get started?
Yeah, so good question. In terms of the starting point was somewhere close to 3.5 years back, if I remember. I was it was just out of where I was closely working with Pact Publishing, which is a publishing company out of UK. And I used to closely work with tech authors who used to write books in AI and data science space. And my job as a community manager back then was to obviously make sure where I'm bringing again the right books to the community and getting into those small pockets of communities and bring them those educational materials, which would be the book from Pact or otherwise as well. And that's when I kind of realized that there's a lot of gap in terms of people understanding this space, and there's a lot of education that people want to get, not only just from the books or from courses, but they kind of want to listen to real world cases that are happening. They want to listen to the thought leaders. They want to listen to the real builders in the data science and AI field. And that's when I thought, okay, let's start with something around the lines where I could help them. And that gave birth to the Rabbit Show, where I was like, okay, let's go live and see what happens. And my theory, I never wanted, it wasn't like, oh, I want this as a media company to grow in the next 4 years or 5 years, or where I'm working with companies as well. And, but the only idea was to help the community in a way where it's not salesy. No one will talk about the products and services specifically.
Yeah.
It's just about coming on the show, talk about the space, talk about what you're doing, what do you think about the future. If there's generative AI that's come up, then what do you think about it? How is it that with generative AI, if you have any implementation already in your software, how are you helping your customers? those types of stories people love to hear, rather than someone just talking about their products and services and uh, just giving a salesy pitch out there. So that's been the USP from day one, and that has helped me pretty well to grow in the Ravit show as well. Because people kind of feel that this is the conversation we want to listen to. It's not very formal. It's not where, oh, there's a pre-script put in place and we'll just
Mhm.
be asking about these things. And there's two-way conversation as well. If it's like, okay, even if I have like five questions that I'll think about that I'll be asking this guest, but if I go about and say ask two questions, and after that, if I have like 10 questions from the audience, I'll take all the questions from the audience itself. It
Right.
will be just two-way. I'm just a person who's asking questions. That's it, because it kind of covers a good ground. And my agenda with the Rabbit Show from day one was that, and it kind of still works on that pretty well. So yeah, it happened. It's been 4 years now. Obviously, with obviously we growing and scaling up, things kind of become difficult in terms of you being the alone one to handle so many things. So my wife came on board, and she obviously now works
Nice.
as a co-founder of the Rabbit Show and does a lot of things, which is obviously working around the outreach or promotions or making sure how we are getting the messaging not only just on one channel but distributing it at various places, and how we can grow this. So that gives me more play as well to think around that how we can grow further. So we're working with a few video editors as well to make sure that the content that comes up is also rich. But yeah, that's a little bit about the Ravit show. We still not that huge, but as a media company, we still have worked with a lot of amazing companies, and proud of that. Obviously, because it puts it's difficult. I know where companies need to have that authentic trust, and once they have, they'll have like I work with a lot of companies which have like retained our services as well from years. Companies like
Mm.
Starburst, we work with them since last 3 years, and
Yeah.
do different gigs for them just to make sure where they have their voices out there, and what they're creating is amazing. So it always helps.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have, I think, similar-ish shows. I would say they're also very, very different, and complementary to a big degree. I always found that the crux for me, I'd like your take on this, is like finding a good guest, and then I think figuring out a good
Mhm.
balance of the conversation that you have with that guest. I don't know, how do you go about finding guests for your show,
Yeah,
or
it's
do they find
interesting.
you?
So it's both ways. Like sometimes now, obviously, since last 2.5 years, I kind of get at least 5 to 10 requests in a week where there are folks who would be like, okay, we have a story, we want to share it with you. And then there's obviously companies that we would want to reach out to if there's a new seed series startup which has just come in, and talking about them and getting their stories out there to the world kind of makes sense, because they are in that innovation phase which people would definitely want to learn about. And if it's not a buzzword, or if it's a buzzword, it's my how I take it as a job is, uh, if people are talking about data mesh, bring that up. And if it's,
Yeah.
obviously for people to decide, wherein, after 2 years, data mesh still is hot. If it is right now, people, love that. We just want to be the first ones to bring those kind of topics out. So we do reach out to companies, but a lot of folks, companies also do reach out. Again, there are various types of requests, but I kind of explain them the format, and luckily, I think companies also have started understanding these startups that there's no way you should be talking just about the product, or
Yeah.
you need to have that voice where how you're solving the problem for the customers, how will it make a difference in them using your product, and that will only work out. Just make them curious. An audience would love
Mhm.
to, obviously learn more and more things about you and your product then.
Yeah, I find it the same thing too, and it's one of those things where I feel like um, I think companies are catching on, but I think for the longest time, especially at the beginning of COVID, when everyone was doing webinars, and live streams, a lot of the it definitely seemed a lot more salesy. I would say a few years ago. Um,
Right.
and now it's interesting just because there's so many companies in the data space. For one, it's like I think as I talk to founders, it's a really interesting discussion because
Yeah.
the recognition that distribution and I think getting out of that bubble of obscurity or breaking through
Hmm.
that obscurity is like it's huge. It's a huge problem for companies because there's just so many of them right now, and um, and simultaneously, what you're seeing is a lot of budgets for data tools are being cut back, and so, but more than ever, you're starting to see a lot of companies I think coming out of the woodwork and trying to market because I think they realize this is kind of if you're not going to do it now, then when are you going to do it? So, you know,
True.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though, but it is definitely a balance in trying to get guests who I think have a good conversation, but aren't going to just use it for blatantly shilling their products. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, and to be honest, in terms of the guests as well, I think guests, when they kind of, obviously, sometimes if they are coming from a vendor side, they have a particular mindset that, okay,
yeah,
how do I make the most out of it? If I talk to a developer advocate, obviously it's their job where they need to talk about their product,
Mhm.
or the open source technology that they're coming from. So it kind of gets difficult. Then it's a difficult balance for them as well. And the best way, where I say, is try out practical examples. Tell
Mhm.
us about how, tell the folks more about the technology in a way where, again, people will trust your product, but sit on the open source bit where it's for free. People can try, and obviously they can win there,
Yeah,
and then get to the next level. So developer advocates always have that type of uh, struggle, but then they kind of understand, and then they are super smooth, because they obviously they are amazing at what they do, and they understand that balance. And when it's an enterprise, like I spoke to, I remember Veronica recently, and then also I spoke to
Mhm.
Dora. I think both of them have like years of experience in enterprise, and they had a completely different perspective and the outlook as well, because they are the
Oh,
customers.
interesting.
Yeah, so they have amazing insights about what are the real pain points that they face day in and out, and how has the evolution happened, what it looked like 5 years back, what it looks currently, and how they feel about the future as well. So those type of interesting insights, every vendor also would want to hear from these experts.
Yeah.
So that's like the balance as well, where I kind of keep it a mix, where, oh, you hear the vendor side, but you also need to hear the leaders side as well, who are actually buying these products or using it day in and out, or maybe creating something like this. So they always kind of feel, the audience kind of feel very intrigued when they hear two sides. And not every day, I don't think, like, your show apart, obviously your Monday morning chat show is amazing, I love it. And you talk to everyone, each side you kind of cover, and that's what
Mhm.
basically we do as well, where it's like, we're not selling anything, but you learn a lot from each of the sides as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's key too, and it's one of those things where I like my show is invite only, and I usually have to
Yeah,
make the personal invite because I don't. And everyone wants to be on the show, right? But
exactly.
if you email to be on the show, I'll probably, unless there's a good story, probably have you wait. And the reason is, for one, in some weird way, more people want to be on the show all of a sudden because it's hard to get onto. But also the conversations are super key, right? And so you always want to figure out
True.
like what's the story you want to talk about, who's the person you want to talk about, or talk with, and so forth. And it's um, I definitely try and get like very various perspectives, and I think very competing opinions on stuff too, right? And having
True.
various companies in this space. Like I think we had AtScale and our
Yeah.
show and talking about semantic layers, and we had Cube, and then Colin Zima, who absolutely hates semantic layer, talking about I think kind of back to back to back, right? But it's because I think part of it for Matt and I when we do these shows is just trying to understand just things that we didn't know before. I mean, for us, it's educational. We don't make any money off the show.
Yeah.
Nobody pays to be on the show, and so it's kind of like we just want to have good conversations with people and learn something new. So it's cool. I mean, there's just different approaches, and then it's interesting because we run in sort of this circle called loosely the Data Avengers, and we have a lot of other friends who have
Wow.
shows, and and
Exactly.
George has his show, Kate has hers. Who else in the group?
I think Scott does live sessions, but then very
Yeah.
limited. He's more of a conference person. He kind of goes out there and he's like killing it at each of the conferences. So he's
Hmm.
been invited at a lot of conferences. Harpreet used to do. I remember he used to do these happy hours, I guess.
Office
So
hours, yeah, the artist
office
data
hours,
science,
right?
yeah, yeah. I hope he brings that back. That was a lot of fun. It was a good way to kind of cap off the Friday.
Yeah.
But missed that a lot. That was for the audience out there that didn't know that. So Harpreet Sahota had a show called the Artist of Data Science, and basically every afternoon on Friday, it was
Friday.
just kind of open office hours. You get a bunch of people who have questions and people who might have answers, and get them together and see what happens. And I think it was a really magical time. I think on at least for the data nerds, because it was in COVID. It was in the peak of COVID. And it's kind of like, but we met a lot of people there. I don't know if that's where I met you at, but it
Yeah,
was
it's
it was
interesting.
cool.
I don't know. I think we met online itself. Like LinkedIn, for me, I've met all the data Avengers on LinkedIn itself. There's no other
Yeah.
way. Like I haven't met them at a particular company I worked at, but I think, and this is the power of when how things have come together from COVID, obviously, but power of LinkedIn uh,
Hmm.
as well. So things kind of have become way stronger in terms of the social media as well, and the data community. But Joe, I have one question for you in terms of, obviously, I know it's your show. I don't want to take over, but
Oh,
one
no, don't worry about
question.
it.
Yeah.
we both
In
we both interview people, so this is how it's going to go. So
so in terms of, obviously the community as well, I know you kind of go on the road shows as well. You have one with DBT that you have upcoming, but you do a lot of shows in person, on road. So how do you kind of distinguish this? The whole LinkedIn webinars, and the live sessions that you do, as compared to the one that you do. I know the Utah meetups as well that you do very often, and
yeah.
obviously there's a lot of traction for those types of meetups as well. So what's like the biggest, like, first one? Which one do you think is better? I know it's a difficult one to even choose, but what's your take on both of those?
It's a good question. I feel like in person is just something I'd always done before. I've been running meetups for a really, really long time. I helped
Exactly.
start a Python meetup over 10 years ago, and I think a Ruby meetup I helped with back in 2009 or 10, whatever. But anyway, like I started the Utah Data Engineering Meetup with a few friends back in 2018. So that's about 5 years old, and so I've always done
Yep.
meetups, right? I mean,
Mm.
always had some community involvement, and that. But I'd say up until COVID, that was all localized, right? I was focused on the Utah market where I live, specifically Salt Lake
Yeah.
City, and COVID sort of blew the doors off everything, right? I mean, suddenly, and writing I think a really popular book certainly helped, but
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I started getting asked to travel and give talks. And, pretty soon those domestic events started becoming global events to the point where I think I give more
Exactly.
talks overseas now than I do in the States. So it's,
Hmm.
I don't know, but if I compare it to the shows, I just kind of look at everything as like one, I don't know, it's just sort of one continuous flow of things. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
and I have fun with it all. Right. So it's like, I like doing the in-person stuff. I think that bridges the gap from online, and
Hmm.
online bridges the gap back to the real world. So, when I go to conferences now, it's not uncommon to get hit up for like selfies every 2-3 minutes. Just walking down
Yeah.
the street. I'm not kidding, dude. It's crazy. Like, um, you know, in San Francisco, like last month for Databricks, I was just waiting for a Uber, then somebody just pops in and takes a selfie real quick, and I'm like, this is, so
Wow.
it's interesting to have that happen, right? But I mean, I
Right.
definitely, it's cool to see, but I think the in person again, it just sort of bridges the the gap back to the shows. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's almost like it's just one, like I said, one continuum of the same thing, right? Which is just talking with awesome people. You get to talk to them in person, you get to talk to them online. I don't know. But it's about community, right? And I think that that's the more
Yeah.
important thing. I just understand that this community it does exist outside of social media as well, surprisingly enough.
Exactly.
So so
Exactly.
it's cool to see, right?
I saw agree with your points here because it kind of when I obviously uh, I've been obviously I reside here in Mumbai in India, and I've been
Hmm.
visiting, traveling a lot for events now. Since things have opened up since last 1.5 year, 2 years, we've been traveling a lot, everyone. So at the start of COVID, it was a different scenario when you used to sit online and do stuff. But since things have opened up and now not everyone's going to spend like 3 hours on LinkedIn, they would rather, obviously they have an event that they'll be at. So if you
Yeah.
want to meet and fill that gap, you can be there. You can, obviously go out and obviously meet a larger audience there as well. I know it's sometimes I kind of debate with myself where oh, is it better to be on air in reach places or go to just one place for a meetup and just have 2 days spent there with those maybe 500 folks who are attending or 1,000 folks who are attending. But I kind of feel the debate is kind of going away because I feel that in-person gap, like you mentioned, and and the people living out of the social media, if you kind of go out there and meet them, that's a different world altogether of our community, the data community as well. So it's always fun that way. Talking about selfies, I remember last year in Singapore, I had someone. Um, I guess from Imply Company, you might know Imply folks. You closely work with
Yeah,
them
I know
for
Imply.
your
Yep.
meetups. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I guess it was the APAC team. I was at Singapore conference, Big Data and AI World, and there was this guy from Imply Company, and he's like, because I was wearing my hoodie, and that's how obviously it has the Ravit show on it, and that guy was like, "Oh, are you Ravit Jain?" So I'm like, yeah. So, and then he goes like, are you sure about it or are you the clone of Ravit Jain? I'm like, no,
That's
no,
funny.
I'm the one. I'm the one. So he's like, so he just goes like, oh, so you're very rich. Why are you here? And I'm like, sorry. How does it make me rich if I'm obviously a host of the show? So he's like, then he kind of started giving me a background about how he knows me. I'm like, how do you know me? Do you watch my show? So he's like, no, I don't watch your show because we also put it as a podcast on Google,
Mm.
Spotify, Amazon, and other places. So he's like, I just listened to the Google stuff and I thought you would be very rich. And I'm like, sorry, it's so the podcasters need to be rich. Is that so? So, but that's
Oh,
how it
that's
is,
funny.
right? Yeah, it was so
I think I
much
know the guy
fun.
you're talking about too. I met him in Sydney last year. Yeah, the Imply.
Oh,
There's
is
not a
it?
lot of them over there. Yeah, yeah. So he's a good
Okay.
dude. I think if it's the same person, but yeah, that's interesting. The kind of the perception of the public on podcasters.
The
I can
creators,
guarantee you
right?
that yeah, it's unless you're Jake Paul or Mr. Beast or something, it's kind of hard to I would say make a living as a podcaster. Or Joe Rogan, for
Exactly.
example, he does really well in his podcast. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely could be
it's
done. But
difficult.
for me, it's something I focused on though, right? I mean, it would probably leaving a lot of money on the table, but it's just one of those things where I'm just like, it is if you build the audience right, and people care about what you're saying and they come back because you have good conversations, good guests, I think the rest takes care of itself. If you I think the mistake I see some podcasters make and content creators is they try and optimize on making money too early.
Yeah,
um,
that's
and it's just like you haven't earned the right to charge money yet. I mean, you can charge money, go for it, but it's just like it just
it's not
seems
gonna
a bit
work,
odd.
right? Yeah, because that's a very good point because I obviously in my journey as well, people ask me that, okay, when did you start monetizing it? When did you start having brand deals?
Hmm.
When did you start, obviously collaborating with other creators as well? Or now, if you have like an influencer marketing, altogether a good package for the influencer marketing, and how you working with companies and helping them to ramp up their marketing. So I'm like, it took me almost close to more than a year,
Yeah.
and it's not a lot of money that you'll make out of the brand deals as well. You need to create that trust. You need to obviously have first, like you mentioned, the biggest play is the audience. If you're talking the right language, if you're talking something that they would want to listen to, and they'll have a good key takeaway, that will only bring them back to your back to their Spotify and listen to you, or back to the YouTube, and then they'll give you a thumbs up. But those thumbs up should go on for a while. It shouldn't be like just one off, or
Hmm.
people just talking about it, that, oh yeah, we like the last episode, but that was the first one we have heard from. It should be like, oh,
Yeah.
we've heard like 20 episodes, and we kind of follow it. We try to follow it as much as we can, because there are interesting guests coming on board, there are interesting questions being asked, there's no salesy
Hmm.
stuff spoken there. So it's a big win for us to implement things. It helps us in various ways in our career as well. And not only just
Yeah.
that, it also helps us to upscale. It helps us to know more people in the space, know more people who are approachable and we can make business with. So there are various perspectives that kind of audience also has when they are listening to a podcast. Like if currently they are listening to both of us, they obviously want to hear a story of a creator, or also known as, people say, oh, you're an influencer, which I don't like. I like, maybe the creator is better word, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You need to
It is what it is.
obviously, yeah, you need to have that tag, whatever tag it is. But they would obviously want to learn about the journey, about the Ravit show, about the community building, about how it all kind of works behind the scenes, about podcasting. So if we're not talking about it, or if you're not sharing our experiences, they wouldn't want to be like, they'll be like, oh no, Ravit is boring, we don't want to listen to him, and they'll just go off. But if I'm kind
Hmm.
of obviously sharing how, what my journey has been, and how easy or difficult it was, they would obviously want to stick in, obviously learn. And if they are obviously wanting to build their own community, or wanting to become a creator, so those are the things they would definitely stick on to, and they'll come back to Joe's podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess what advice do you have for people that who want to become content creators or quote influencers?
Yeah. So do you see many as well?
I see. I think it's becoming more of a thing. Again, we're talking about the data space here, but I think I accidentally fell into it. I didn't intend to become a
Yeah.
quote influencer or whatever.
I,
But it is what
I,
it is.
you,
You know.
yeah, and you don't act as one as well. You're the most approachable and most humble person as well. Like I work with creators and influencers. I know that would be like, oh, we've spent like 5 years into the game, and then yeah, we wouldn't want to work with startups. We have a typical card rate that
Mm.
we'll take on. That, oh, we wouldn't do paid post for less than $2,000 or three
Yeah.
thousand dollars. That's how they are. But I think everyone has their own plan and perspective. No complaints there. But in terms of
Yeah.
the creators, I think the creator economy itself has like globally, if I talk, it has grown so much, not only just, but in the data space, if I see, everyone wants to be there, everyone wants to have their journey, but a lot of them kind of struggle, where I get a lot of people reaching out to me, and they're like, oh, how did you manage to get 100,000 followers on LinkedIn? Tell us more about
Mm.
it. We are happy to pay you. We are happy to you can go out and have your team manage our LinkedIn, and we'll pay you X amount.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, it's your, I
Yeah.
don't know how it works. It's more on the lines where, if you are, like for me, I found a gap where people want to learn more and more things about data and AI. And I went out and, obviously started creating content, free content, started sharing out free resources, which are easily also available otherwise. People can go on internet and find those things. But if they can't, I'm being the source of, I'm being that bridge where they can, obviously sit down and upscale in their career. And that's why they kind of feel that,
Yeah.
oh, Ravit does his show, he has interesting guests. We would love to, hear those things. But not only just that, he'll come out and, obviously share interesting things. And also with the brand deals, if I go out and, obviously like my business keeps me at a place where I have to be vendor agnostic, where I can say, oh, this is my favorite. But that also gives me a good, a good position in the creator space where uh, I'm just, I don't support any of the brands. Like, I support everyone, to be honest. Whatever
Hmm.
they're doing best in their space. So that also puts me in a better place with brands, but also with the audience where, oh, Ravit won't say this is his favorite. Like, obviously, Joe, it's not obviously this book, Data
Yeah.
Observability,
Yeah.
the reality, where
Hmm.
you have contributed a chapter as well. Sanjeev
Yeah.
Mohan has contributed, and there were like almost close to 9 companies in data observability. So that level of companies have actually gone out and contributed. Not every day, like com- these data observability vendors would love to obviously sit at conferences and amongst each others, like on the same page. They should have their logos, but not everyone would agree to be on a book and have their logos. But that's
Right.
how, obviously I've worked with them. I've created uh, that opportunity for them where, oh, I'm not, just gonna support Monte Carlo, Big Eye, Data Band, Anamlo, but I'll support all of you guys, and I'll put you all in a book,
Hmm.
and I let the audience decide. The book is for free. The audience will decide what, and you all are contributing one chapter. You are not specifically talking about the product at all in the book. So
Yeah.
audience will be there. They are the biggest judge for your product. So that's how, you need to create. And that's where, the creators also need to understand that it's not a ball game where you just talk about, like, you need to find one way where you say that, okay, this is what I want to fill out for my audience. And once you kind of start that journey, I think it will help you go places. Like,
Yeah.
I also see a lot of, obviously, creators who have like 5 different focus altogether. They have like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll focus on the SQL, Python. We'll also help this community, that community. Even we'll work with our community. Oh, it's not going to work, right? Because you won't be
Right.
able to put out so much content. Maybe fix on something one. Like, if you are master in SQL, just go out and talk about SQL and share your journey every day, or come up with a book, come up with a white paper, share something for the audience. And share, the most interesting thing is share the daily problem that they are facing. Once they kind of start relating to you, it will help you go places again. Start writing blogs, write a book is like a no brainer. And who better than you, Joe, would obviously say, give a thumbs up on the book, because your book is like number one best selling book, in the best book I have ever obviously seen around in the data engineering space. And the love that your book has got, talking from, obviously what I've looked and what I've seen, people talking about it. I've seen your book photo in trains, in flights, I don't know, at conferences everywhere. Like, even last year when I was in Big Data and AI, the conference that I was talking about, I saw companies having it at their booth.
No way.
So that level, and you might not know about it as well.
I didn't know
So
any
that
of this, man.
exactly. So that's the level of places you can go even without knowing that, and that's how people start trusting you with authentic things that you're kind of creating. So
Yeah.
and there's no shortcut. To be honest, people think in the next 3 months we want, like, people run behind numbers. And to be honest, I've never ran behind numbers. If someone asked me the other day, So how did you celebrate like your 100K when you reach 100K milestone? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm sorry, I didn't do anything, right? So they're like, but it's 100K. You should do something. You should like cut a cake with the 100K and all of those things. I'm like, I'm just not that person, to be honest. And
Yeah.
maybe I didn't realize that that should be the thing, or you need to, obviously set a milestone. I didn't set that milestone. Maybe that's why. But creators kind of run behind those numbers, I think. And I've said this a lot of times at a lot of places, that even if you have like 10,000 followers, but if they are your right target audience, you'll reach
Yep.
places. You don't need to have the 100,000 folks in your account or as your followers. If there are 10,000 people, you can make more than 100 million as well with, the right folks around you. So that type of, if they are supporting you, you'll reach places. Not like if I have 100,000 folks, not like 100,000 folks are liking my post, right? So, but if there are 10,000 folks, and if 1,000 people kind of connect with you very well, and if they like your post, that's like 1,000 likes. Because people also talk about the likes, the reactions, the comments that they get. So that's why
Yep.
I'm kind of putting it that way as well. That if it's about the numbers, then these numbers can also get you what you need. So
Hmm.
don't worry about the numbers, and don't
The
worry
numbers.
about, obviously, yeah. But
The numbers are a weird one too. Like I think I have no intention behind my posts. They're just the dumbest posts I could think of. Like, I put one out last week that was just a picture of a book that I have on my coffee table, How to Appear Smart in Meetings, which is a satire book, and it was just I think the page was somebody said, oh, this 25% of users clicked on the button, and so the way you look smart is say, oh, that's
I
like
saw
one in
that. Yeah,
four, right? But that post got like several thousand reactions. I mean, hundreds of thousands of
reactions.
views, right? And it was just something where I just posted it kind of on a whim. But it's one of these things where I feel like the content, at least for me personally, that's done well has been there's no intention behind it. It's just there's no plan. And but anymore, that's all of my content because I just post this the most random stuff. There's no
Wow.
rhyme or reason to it anymore. It's not like I'm sitting there with a content plan and a calendar saying, "Oh, on this day I'm going to make this post." It's like I don't know, I'm going to post something incredibly stupid,
Yeah,
and that tends to do really well. It tends to do. I mean, and engagement's always good. So I don't know. For content creators out there
exactly.
too, it's like I think just bringing your quote authentic self, to the table is that's what people, at least in my experience, that's what they resonate with at the end of the day. I think, and I know friends out there in the influencer space and content space who they track all their posts meticulously. They're trying to fine
Oh,
tune
oh
the
my
the
God.
copy, and I'm like, I think you're overthinking it in a lot of ways.
Exactly. You can't do
It's
that. Like overthinking. One thing that I've never done is overthinking about a post. Whatever I think, I'll just go out and post about it. Even if I like
mhm.
get less reactions, whatever it is, I'm like, let's just do it because that's what I feel about it right now. So, and that's the same thing with you. Obviously, Joe, as a personality, like as much as I know you personally, you're a fun guy. You're a nerd person in terms of obviously when it comes to data and engineering. So you are out there and you would post about, obviously data modeling as well, but you'll also post about some fun stuff, some memes. So people kind of connect with you. I'll easily connect with all your posts because that's who you are and that's how I know you.
Yeah,
But also
yeah,
for creators, if you want if you want your audience to understand you, you need to put yourself out there
yeah,
as it is. You don't need to over engineer any post, because if you kind of go out and start over engineering post, you'll fall in that trap where okay, one post might do well but the rest three of them might not.
hmm,
So,
yep,
and then there's a lot of play of the LinkedIn algo as well and the other platform algorithms as well. So you can't ever or you can't always beat the algorithm, right? It's also about the authenticity, and
yeah.
that's only the thing that will go a long way.
Oh yeah, it's so hard to, I think, intentionally make things viral. It's sort of an oxymoron in a way. The most viral stuff happens like kind of by accident. Yeah, and I think a lot of content creators, I would say, try and bust out of the. There's definitely a lot of sameness out there, so everyone's sharing the same SQL tutorials. And the thing that really pisses me off is when somebody will just copy somebody else's post word for word, And I called somebody out on this
Exactly.
the other day because like this looks like that one post that this guy wrote, and so that's pretty corny. Don't do that. I would say also like generative AI is great and large language models are great, but I think I'm starting to notice posts that look like ChatGPT wrote them. Like there's no way
Yeah,
around it. Like
exactly.
it's just boring as hell. So
It's so true because obviously I have a few other groups as well who are in India, one from Singapore as well. Those group chats and people, obviously using Chat GPT is not a problem, but use it in a way which is giving you the wealth of knowledge, and then you put it in your words and you understand how what do you think about it, because
yeah.
it's so clear where, oh, there's it will give you the hashtags as well. If someone has like all the hashtags, the first capital letter, I know it's written by Chat GPT. So don't do that, because it won't put you in a place where I know everything, because obviously I go out and also use Chat GPT. I see
Yeah.
what it kind of gives out the results as well. So I don't see obviously the authenticity there, and yeah, it's pretty creepy when obviously when someone goes out and copies post as it is. There was in sometimes it's like the word text. It's so annoying if it's obviously something educational, and if there are due credits given, and obviously the
Hmm.
owner is fine with it, he's happy that, oh, my post is being shared by other community members, it's a different story altogether then.
Yeah, it's a different story. But there's a temptation there because you said, there's no shortcuts, but I think people want to take the shortcuts, right? I was actually having a
Yeah.
conversation about this last night with some content creators, and they're kind of like, how do I become an expert? How do I show expertise more? And it's like there's really no shortcut to it. I mean, you just kind of have to put in the work, and it compounds, kind of like compound interest does over time. But I told them there's this old Warren Buffett quote. It's kind of crass, but I think it's appropriate. It's like trying to get 9 women pregnant and expecting a baby in a month. Like it doesn't really work that way. Warren's got all kinds of stuff like this. He's kind of a crass old man, um, but I think a description is very true, right? I think a lot of people
Yeah.
try and short circuit the process of, yeah, creating good content and getting a following, and it's like there's. I would say if you manage to do that, it's also like easy come, easy go, right? You could lose that
Yeah,
audience pretty quickly too. I think time is just
exactly. It's worse, and I kind of also see things where obviously there's also a side of folks on, like, typically on LinkedIn, where I kind of see that, oh, you are putting out content, and that content is a video of, I don't know how
mm,
AI is doing better or how something else is doing better, but I kind of feel, and they'll get like, I don't know what type of engagement, but they, obviously people make it. People love looking at, obviously these types of videos, and there's this type of audience as well who would be like, who would just expect, you putting out informational videos, and that's it. I don't know. It looks like
right.
Facebook to me. I kind of stay away from
Mm,
such stuff, because I feel in the data world, if you kind of, obviously sharing one or two videos here and there is fine about, but at
yeah.
least have your own personality to it,
Mm,
because that's your identity. If you want to do that, maybe do it on a company page or something. Create a company page on LinkedIn, and grow that. But on LinkedIn, I kind of feel that's like, okay, there's this shortcut. People say there's no shortcut. Like we are talking about, there's no authentic. If you want to be a creator, there's no authentic shortcut. But
right.
people do feel that, oh, there's this shortcut where I put out interesting videos of AI data, and I'll have like 1 million followers very easily. Just wait and watch of it. I've seen those types of people as well. Like
Oh yeah.
they kind of have like 1 million follower or 700K, 800K followers just in like 3 years, 2 years, and that type of
Hmm.
audience and that type of engagement. But I don't think that's not my way. My way is more about me being out there. If I like something, a webinar that
Yeah.
is coming up, I'll put out my photo and put it in right in front of people, so people feel that, oh, Ravit is saying that. He's actually saying that. So that's how I connect with my audience, and they also kind of feel that, that's the fun stuff he does, even with the show or with
Yeah,
other things that I'm kind of also promoting to the audience. So yeah.
yeah. No, you definitely have your own niche, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
distinctly Rabbit. Like I can't copy what you do, and I don't think anyone could if they try. 'Cause you just have your own like say niche, right? You're not out there trying to be
Yeah.
Mr. Beast or or making tutorial videos like, hey, I'm going to teach you the top 10 SQL tricks, and here we go. So it's like that's it's just not your brand, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, it is interesting though. I'm curious to see where this goes, especially with I think the prevalence of generative AI, whether it's you're talking about video generation or audio or text, right? Like I'm waiting basically for like the first like AI data influencer to show up on the scene and um, like purely AI. Maybe
Yeah.
there'll be Ben Taylor actually when he turns into a robot. So
Yeah, it's
or
interesting. Actually, talking about that, there was this Instagram account I came across in. Looks like this guy is uh, is actually using generative AI for the complete account. Like every announcement on that account also happens through an AI. He's created an AI for the account itself, and
whoa,
everything on that account actually happens through AI. Like even posting happens through an AI. The content decision is also through an AI because he's programmed all the things in a way where AI actually suggests the content, what's in the next, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The only things I think he does is the prompting.
mm,
And that also brings me to, obviously, this is a good way. Obviously, he's done something interesting. I kind of follow his Instagram. I'll share that with you. I know we're connected on
yeah,
Instagram.
please do.
So
Yeah,
this question that I had was around prompt engineering. So, who better than you, Joe, would can tell me about what's your thought on prompt engineering? Because we've been listening a lot. I have started listening. I've already seen like last 6 months, 7 months. I've seen people creating courses on prompt engineering. So I'm kind
yeah.
of curious. What's your thought on prompt engineering and what is it?
I
Like,
mean,
what is it?
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think we're all still trying to figure that out, right? Because you're just interacting with these models and trying to get different outputs. I mean, I have a workflow that works for me. I use it, quite often for a lot of the like building skeletons for content and stuff. I think it's super good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Writing quiz questions, it's phenomenal. Actually, it's really good. So stuff like that, So I've gotten good at the things that I think I need to know, but it's sort of a bottomless pit, really. Like it depends on what you're trying to do. And I can't say I
Yep.
studied prompt engineering at all, right? So but I think it feels like it's one of these things where it's just a skill that you're going to have, but it's sort of like learning how to write a good Google search. Remember when Google came out way back in the day? I remember in the late '90s, early 2000s. I was using Alta Vista at the time, and
Yeah.
uh, it's a university. Yes, one of my friends she showed me Google. I was doing some engineering math courses together, and I was like, "Oh, these results are really, really good, right?" And so you get better at um, using the search bar, and I think it's very similar to what you're seeing with prompt engineering. But again, the capabilities of the models too, as those improve, I'm curious to see how prompt engineering changes. Um, and as far as social media
Yep.
goes, it'd be interesting if you could come up with like a um, I'd be curious to see if somebody can capitalize on like predicting trends in social media through some sort of a machine learning or AI model, then feeding that back into a LLM to generate new content that sort of
Oh,
is
wow.
kind of cutting edge. Like that would be pretty interesting to see, where you're not just like reacting to trends, but you might be sort of creating them as well. It'd be very interesting to see. I think it's going to happen. Um,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
like why not?
Yeah,
So,
thankful that I asked that question because it kind of brings that very important point, and it is, obviously, it would be super interesting if someone kind of comes up with that type of capability and kind of capitalize on, obviously getting that up. So, yeah,
oh,
100%.
it's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. My concern is that we're going to become so reliant on this stuff that I'm very curious to see what happens with misinformation, for example, or disinformation campaigns, and um, if it's expected about by 2025, 80%, 90% of all content online will be AI generated. I'm like, is that a good thing at the end of the day? Do we so how do you know what's real, right? And how do you know
Exactly.
so that's my biggest concern is that sort of thing. And it's just I was also thinking about this in the, kind of switching gears in the context of just raising kids, and like I was talking to a good friend of mine on his podcast on Friday about this. But it seems like just having the ability to think critically and decipher reality is just going to become more and more of a skill that you have to have, because I
Yeah,
don't know.
but yeah, but
It's
even through the years, what I kind of feel is then if there's AI generated content only, there'll be like so much of biases that will happen, for
oh
sure.
yeah.
And what about the opinions? Like a human opinion today, and 10 years later, if you talk to me, I might have a different opinion altogether. What about that? How do you make an AI change that? Like even if you feed data into it. I can completely flip. Like the next year, I kind of talk about
Mhm.
something completely different. That, oh, I want to get into AI now completely. I'll just talk about AI. I won't talk about data at all. But how do you predict that? How does AI predict that? And that's something,
Yeah.
obviously, I kind of feel everything's okay. I will definitely do a lot. It will progress a lot, but with the human touch and the human, the brain, it's uh, in the content that human can create that no one can. I think that authenticity, like if you are
Yeah.
writing a book today, and if you write it 10 years later as well, Joe, the 10th edition of, say, Fundamentals of Data Engineering, if you kind of come up with that, uh, it's gonna be, you can't make an AI write the 10th one. Trust me, because you have the 9 books, you feed it into
Mhm.
a model, you ask it to write the 10th one. I'm pretty sure it won't write the same one, the one that
No, it won't.
you're wanting to think. So
Mm-mm.
it can copy your style. It can copy your the use cases that you've used in the book from the last 9 times, and understand, predict that, okay, the 10th time you might go out with this one, and I might be pretty sure, but that year something different happened. COVID happened again, which shouldn't be. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but something happened which changed the world. So
Yeah.
what then? So that's a different ball game, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think that it's going to definitely separate out. I think content creators too, who don't put the effort in to come up with original ideas. Like, actually, I'm
Yeah,
kind of excited in some ways because it just means there's, I don't view content as a competition per se, but um, it's going to be easier to stand out in a lot of ways too, if you are
true.
able to sort of use both, right? Whereas relying on generative AI for all your content, I think it's kind of a losing game in some ways. It's easy to get content out, but it doesn't mean the content's any good, right? So
Yeah,
that's sort of the challenge right now.
yeah,
It's
agreed.
We'll see. We shall see. Well,
It's
cool, man.
interesting times. I love it. It's interesting times
Yeah.
in terms of, obviously the content creators as well, because everyone wants to be in the forefront. Everyone thinks that they have more knowledge than ever. If someone goes out and asks me about data modeling, in depth about data modeling, oh, what I need to go is Chat GPT. Tell me everything about data modeling from start till the end.
Hmm.
But the place where the reality hits is when Joris kind of comes and talks about data modeling is dead or long live data modeling. Then what?
Hmm.
What is it about?
Yeah.
We don't know. And he'll share some perspectives which will not be in any of the Chat GPT that you're using. Any of the AI system
Mm-mm.
might not have those. And people might connect with him pretty easily, rather than the content that you're sharing, which is not at all wrong, which is pretty interesting, which is right, but it just doesn't have the human flavor or
Oh
human who
yeah.
has used it over and over again. So yeah, that's the difference I
Oh
feel.
yeah. No, and I think the other thing that's going to happen too, kind of closing out, is like the in person is going to be more and more of a thing. I think
Yeah,
just because
for sure.
it's yeah, I think people are just going to be kind of tired of the internet after a bit. I'm placing the bet actually on this. I think that people are going to grow so tired of it that they're going to seek out more in person experiences, just because it's. I mean, if you're just reading a sea of like crap, then it's like, what's the point, right? Um,
Exactly.
but I think humans are also kind of wired to. I mean, you go anywhere in the world, and the universal posture is somebody hunched over, like scrolling on their phone. Like that's like
So true.
anywhere you go in the world, doesn't matter. I'm sure it's in India, right? It's like there's this.
So true.
This
Yeah, for sure. Like everyone, every day, full time. It's like anywhere. even if I have seen people, I was watching a movie last night and in a theater, and I see this guy sitting next to me, he's in the mobile, and I'm like, for the movie you've come and you're still in mobile, like that's the only place like I see
Oh wow.
maximum people watching a movie, right? But this guy is in the mobile, and I'm like, oh, good.
Do the movie theaters allow that to happen over there, or will they kick you out?
No, they still allow if you're not making any noise, or if the
Okay.
person sitting next to you is okay with it, then they won't have a
Okay.
problem with that. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, in the States you'll get thrown out of a theater if you do that.
You can't use mobile at all.
Mm-mm.
Oh my! Wow, that's a good one. At least
Well, yeah, because
when
otherwise
you
it would just be a sea of screens. You can't, what's the point? It's like, so it's super
exactly,
distracting.
that's a good
I've seen
one.
people
Yeah.
take phone calls in a movie theater. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're insane, but what a world. Cool. All right, man. Well, yeah, it's good having you on the show. Good to chat as always. We'll be catching up, I guess, next month in
Yes,
Big Data
in
London.
London.
So, yeah,
Yes, it will be fun. I'm looking forward to your keynote at Big Data London, Joe. So it will be super fun.
nice.
Looking forward to hanging out, having dinners, drinks, and
Yep.
obviously meeting you after knowing for more than 3 years now, 4 years,
Yeah,
maybe more than that.
long time.
Yeah,
Long time, man. Well, cool. Yeah.
awesome.
I'll put your links in the show notes here. But yeah, man, always good to talk to you. So have a
Same
great
here, Joe.
night. I
Thanks
know
for
it's getting
having
late
me.
there. Yeah. Anytime, dude.
No worries.